Okay, yes, I love parts of Euphoria Season 2, but I have to be honest, for a show that has this tight of a grip on me, it is shocking that its second season would have this amount of ridiculous writing and creative decisions that just leave me dumbfounded. This is how Euphoria Season 2 was a complete fucking mess. But before I go into things, please make sure to subscribe to the channel if you do enjoy this video and hit the bell icon for notifications for when new videos drop. But let's just jump straight into talking about the tone and how it just wasn't it. One of the big things being touted for this season was how dark it was going to be for our main characters. After some of the early episodes, actors and the crew of the show would say, oh, it's only going to get worse, but this is where I'm going to get mad. If there's anything I could say to Sam Levinson, the show's main driving creative force, it's that the show being darker doesn't mean more violence and sex. That doesn't tie directly to tone, and thinking it does leads to more excessive nudity and blood, to which I think was more meant to come across as the show maturing, when no, it didn't come across as that at all. When the best compliment of season 1 is that it just isn't fucking Riverdale.
I'm weird. I'm a weirdo.
The show goes and does this, where police are doing raids, killing kids, while the comedic laugh out loud moments of outright stupidity just is at an all-time high. And then it's all juxtaposed with some of the show's best moments and best hard-hitting drama about anxiety, depression, body image, and the rest of the issues the show actually wants to address and tackle. The show's tone is the most nuanced issue. It's one that most probably you don't care about, and we'll get to things like the addition of Elliot and his songs soon, but this one just means so much to me. When you are dealing with characters who are literally destroying themselves piece by piece, to intercut that with the drug drama of owing 10k to someone who's going to sell your body in Mexico just instantly strips everything that made this narrative a relatable vehicle for self-insertion. Because at the end of the day, I could defend the show's depiction of high school in season 1. The insane hyperbolic nature of the emotional realism they were going for resided something within me. I could follow along and really insert myself easily into this colorful, amazingly shot world. But season 2 takes this and tosses it. To have a large, and I mean large, sections where I'm just not invested. Like, I'm out, not on board, and I have to wait for these large sections to be over. This is why getting the tone right is important. When you have such a dark tone, getting it wrong undermines the rest of the good work and foundations you have done. It doesn't matter if the next scene was meant to make you cry if you're still confused as why the fuck is Cal got his cock out in front of the whole family. But fuck it, let's talk about the handling of returning characters from season 1. This is going to be fun because where the fuck was Chris McKay this season? This is the easiest and quickest to talk about. He shows up for a few scenes in episode 1, has some interesting moments, and then just fucks off. None of this would have been an issue if you hadn't set up multiple arcs in season 1 that are still left hanging. Almost feels like Sam was playing with some toys in the sandpit and saw some kids playing with some other ones and got distracted, leaving poor McKay just to be in no man's land. Like, was his American football aspects to the show all too great? No, it was by far the weakest part of season 1 narratively in the sense of actually gripping me. It was just a little too cliche for me, not adding anything new bar Cassie's point of view on the toxic abuse that there is in the sport, which is an aspect I wanted to see more of. It's one 13 Reasons Why attempts but fails to do anything of note with. Mostly because it tried to make you feel sympathy for a disgusting rapist, but go off Netflix. Now, if he was replaced with someone that was outstanding and or that was actually a slight refocus of some sort, like shrinking the cast to focus on the likes of Rue, then sure, I would buy that, but that wasn't the case. Even the actor stated he has no idea about anything Sam had been planning to do with his character. Now, there was speculation around whether or not it was vaccination status was the reason, but with any digging on this topic, you'll quickly be able to find that other cast members also shared this belief, and there were no issues present. Like with most BuzzFeed drama, just ignore it. To sum up my thoughts on McKay's absence, I don't mind he isn't there. It is a shame, and I feel like his time in season 1 now is a little pointless that he's just kind of going nowhere, but by far not the worst offender in this season. Let's continue this type of thinking onto other characters, such as probably the most talked about one, Kat. So to talk about Kat, I am going to need to talk about the drama a little bit. I touch on some of the small stuff when talking about McKay, but something that dominated my Twitter feed and TikTok, that I even had friends send me some videos on the topic, was this so-called beef with Barbie Ferreira and the show's creator, Sam Levinson. Rumors began circulating that Barbie walked off set furious and the two were just at a constant odds with one another, with things like her arc was being dramatically cut, her lines silenced in the edit. But not long after those initial rumors started to circle, Barbie herself responded in a vague way that just just got any of the speculation that was going around just as being false. Barbie states the following. What's interesting about this season is that there's so many more eyes on it that even the news cycle has been so interesting to see. I've seen so many different things and a lot of it is untrue, and some of it is kind of like mundane little things. Sometimes things that take on a life of their own and they're not rooted in truth. But it's okay, because I know it's just out of the passion and out of the curiosity and all that good stuff. And I know I signed up for it, so I'll take it. I'll take the good and the bad. I made sure to get the entire quote from TV Insider to show the picture Barbie presented, because by reading the rest of the article, it's still pushing this beef angle, using fan responses as a way to validate their own idea of we were right to hate Sam and continue this campaign to come for his head. Now, on my channel and even in this video, you can see I'm very harsh on certain movies and TV shows that I have seen and decided to cover. This video itself is seriously harsh on Sam himself and his writing and creative choices. But as I state in my Man of Steel video, there is a massive difference when you're discussing the handling of something you dislike, even with harsh and vulgar language, and having it out for someone and painting a very dark picture to try and discredit someone. Having theatrics in a video to hybolicize what I'm saying as an attempt to make something more interesting just isn't the same as using hashtags to get someone off of their own show or to paint them as an abuser, as I've seen countless times with head creators on our favorite shows. My last thing just I want to touch on for this drama type thing that we're going on is it just limits the conversation around everything that we are talking about and makes the entire thing borderline a moot point. No longer is it about quality of the writing, we're now discussing whether or not individual things did or didn't happen behind the scenes. Do actors and actresses have a say on what comes out of their mouth? Most times, no. You aren't being paid for your opinion on the script or the arc your character is going on, and that's the brutal truth of it. But the flip side, examples such as literally any Joss Whedon set is fucking unacceptable. And with the most famous cases such as Ray Fisher's incident show that yes, actors need SAG and other types of fallbacks to stop creeps and abusers from doing whatever they want to do and using creative expression as a creative scapegoat for horrid, disgusting behavior. But to touch on Kat's actual arc this season, it was just fine. It was nothing really to have any strong opinions over. Like, there are some okay scenes with Maddie talking about making yourself happy, and the arc is decently spread out over the course of the season, leading to one of the hardest scenes to watch because best boy Ethan is just left there in this diner being gaslit the entire time. I can see what they were doing with all this, but it wasn't really engaging at all. They weren't making any comments on Kat, they weren't showing a progression or a mindset besides that she was just bored. And again, it's a case that sure, this might have happened to someone in Sam's life, but for engaging television, this isn't what Euphoria is known for. So awkward breakups over a brunch just wasn't really it. It didn't leave me going, oh fuck, I have to wait till when to get the next part of the Kat saga. Ethan, with his small amount of screen time this season, was goated though. I can safely say I really love everything with him, including his performance in Lexi's play. I do actually hope to see more of him that's more than just Ethan is nice. What are some of his goals? What are his struggles? How did this breakup affect him? It'd be really nice to see the perspective of one of the only characters who basically isn't crazy or heavily influenced into this drug scheme or violence like most of the cast is. Does Ethan have any mental struggles going on while he isn't in the play? Where does he go on from here? Do the other students now have a mad respect for Ethan for tearing up that stage? He surely is the talk of the town at the moment. Like, it's not hard to just build upon what you've already done and just build up the stakes as the cast get a little bit older. Now, the next person I gotta talk about is really only one scene I just can't fucking stand, and that's got to do with Maddie and that fucking tape. If you saw part 1 of this video, links in the description below, then you would know for the most part I adore Maddie this season. But when you get to episode 6 of season 2, there's an absolute clusterfuck of a moment in the show I can't believe got past the whiteboard stage of writing. Nate rocks up to Maddie's house and then threatens her with a gun, demanding she give him the tape. Let me make this clear. I hate this. If there is one thing this show ain't, it's a crime mafia thriller. Then why the hell is it pulling shit like this in the show? Where the hell is the emotional realism in this, Sam? 95% of season 1 is a show where every facet is a vehicle to engage and feel connected to the characters in some way. But this feels so edgy in an attempt to be dramatic and darker than ever before. This shit ain't dark. It's a poor man's attempt at causing tension when in actuality, Alexia Demi reveals in early ideas where that Maddie was going to go to Jules knowing it's her in the tape. Oh, that's so good. A scene like that is dramatic. That is gripping to see. The agency of Maddie going out of her way to do something like this would have spoken volumes. But now, all of that was literally stolen away from her as she is forcibly stripped of it. And the fix to be able to do both is right there. Have a scene where Maddie does exactly this. Get the gratification of that and the story benefits. And then have Nate waiting for her at her house, and then he uses violence. But it has to be more in tone with the violence that Nate has shown before. No guns. Have Nate be aggressive in his body language. Have him show up unannounced. That's enough. We have plenty of scenes showing that Nate, when he shows up to your place in the dark, it doesn't mean good things. So simply direct the scene as if it was going to be that again, and use the tension of, oh shit, what's Nate gonna do? That's your vehicle of drama. We know Nate isn't going to shoot the gun, so why bloody give it to him? Then Maddie can reveal to Nate that she already gave it back, and that was where she came from. And then he can have this little breakdown and apology to Maddie instead of Jules. I just don't think Nate and Jules needed that altercation in the car, unless the relationship is going somewhere that provided zero closure to any storylines that were satisfying in any way. Granted, I am writing this at midnight on a Wednesday, and rewatching this scene only wanted to make me throw my remote at the wall and leave the room, but it's chill. If I'm missing some sort of time inconsistency, just let me be. I'm just gonna live in bliss and for how it should have played out in my head instead of the mess that was that scene. Cal was, to put it blank, a huge disappointment this season. It's funny because I still have a few characters to go, and it really does sound like I hate the show, but I don't. I really don't. I'm just passionate. Season 1 left so much of the cast in truly interesting positions, and for Cal, the idea of exploring more of his closeted feelings and his own suppressed toxic traits, and how he accidentally followed the cycle of imbuing that onto his own children. And even though it was something that he suffered and struggled with in his own upbringing, was a seriously interesting premise. This topic has limitless material to cover and make it interesting, but to spread it out over the course of the entire season, it drags, and it doesn't have a consistent tone to be able to feel anything but fatiguing. I don't know how many times I have to watch someone in this family speed on the same freeways while drinking for them to get across the message that this family ain't right in the head. Now, CJ, I am sorry, but you're gonna have to need to edit around Cal's member being out in this scene, but in episode 4, when Cal is having his huge breakdown, this is a huge moment and it's all played off for a laugh. And like for Thor Ragnarok or any of the MCU style humor, it's that it takes away from the moment and it's undercutting everything. I don't know why for a scene that is so important, it has to have such a long period of Cal just spitting out lines that would go viral on TikTok.
She was a freak and a fucking fox. Marsha, you were a fucking fox.
Most of the dialogue is just empty and feels cheapened that he is drunk whilst having this spat at his family. And none of this is to say that Cal in this scene is like Tony Stark or any Marvel protagonist. Just making a comparison to how humor undercutting moments affects a scene and its emotional impact. And the fact that every single MCU film does it, so it's literally just an easy point of the finger and go, look, see this? This sucks. Yeah, this really sucks. Honestly, it just disappoints me. And for how it ended, Nate calling the cops on his dad, and we have to have this dramatic scene of confrontation, but it's all really just for nothing. It's really lackluster way to end his arc, and yes, Cal deserved all of this for his actions. The guy is just a pedophile, he's a pedo, but how it all played out just left me just with a ugh really feeling. It doesn't make me feel, oh shit, how does Nate feel? Is this a turning point for him? Because he's still a borderline, no, sorry, he is a sociopath, and it really just angers me that characters with so much great material sitting there is wasted. This was an arc that started from the very beginning. It's one of the first arcs of the show, and it ended in a warehouse and doesn't leave much room for Sam to continue going forward. Every character tied to this arc, being Maddie, Jules, Nate, and Cal, aren't better off narrative-wise. This was just another thing during their journey on the show rather than a monumental moment to look forward to on a rewatch. Season 1 hit places that I just needed to have be hit. And I know that I'm just a hetero cis white guy, and so I can't bloody imagine what it feels like to have these different characters who aren't typically covered in mainstream media, like on HBO of all places, be handled like this. For people to, they feel like connected to those characters who are in a similar mental state to me, that they identify closest to these characters, how they feel. I can only imagine that it feels just more stressing and just distasteful and overall just disappointing to have these characters that hit so close to home for them, and then just for them to do outrageous things, to have the point that just the vehicle for emotion is just not there anymore. Now, if you've checked the date of this video when it's released in comparison to part 1, you'll be able to see that this video took a bit extra to make. So hopefully someone can just say in the comments, yeah, Charles, I feel the exact same way. It hurts. Okay. I'm gonna need to talk about Rue. For Rue, I am going to need to split it up because this first one is just annoying, and yes, I'm still going to be going hard on this, but not too hard. It's the second point that infuriates me to no end. And yeah, it involves him. Ugh. My first huge issue with Rue has got to do with the first half of her arc that involves drugs, and not taking them, the dealing of them. This entire large section of the show just doesn't work. The addition of Faye and Custer was one I also thought was meaningless. Not literally, but from an entertainment standpoint, they just come and continue to push the show in a direction I could not care less for. And all this ties back to my issue with Tone because we came from these amazing specials. Far out, those specials were so good. They broke me. Like, there aren't many shows or movies that invest me that much into what's going on. Yes, I can sympathize with characters easily, but not to the level that these specials did. It's just, I can't illustrate how rare it is. I felt vulnerable. And then we got to season 2 and parts feel right at home, like slipping right back into the groove of things. And other parts have Rue being launched straight into a drug deal with a girl who just injected heroin into a cooch. What the Jesus Christ? Which just leaves me asking more questions like, why is Fez even bringing Rue to this? You're on your way to a New Year's party and then you casually drop by your new dealer you've never met, and after killing the middleman weeks prior, what? And then you bring the loose cannon of the likes of Rue to the deal. My god, spending 10 minutes watching characters get forcibly stripped off who are minors in the show's plot. Yes, they're drug dealers, but the concept alone is just, it's just sickening. And this is all to build tension around this drug lord. It's such a strange way to start the season. And then it all goes nowhere. We get small glimpses of it again when Rue fights off everyone in episode 5, which wasn't too bad, but easily the weakest part of that episode, but then nothing. There are so many questions and arcs that just left hanging. And none of this would be an issue if I didn't think Sam would just end up dropping this arc if he ever gets bored by the time they start shooting season 3 in 2024 or so, whenever Zendaya is free. This is an Attack on Titan where the smallest details such as animation quirks come back in seasons later, or single lines of dialogues or character reactions have double meanings. No. This is why so many people scream to have someone co-write the show with Sam to keep him more accountable when he goes wandering off the beaten path. Oh, okay, just breathe, Charles. Let's just have one thing in the middle of this section to break it up. In episode 3, around 21 minutes in, Rue hits her head and I found it hysterical. I just wanted something positive just to be in the middle here, but sadly, I'm not finished with Rue or, somehow even this point. Alright, the biggest reason I hate this aspect to Rue's arc so much is that it takes my favorite part of her arc in season 1 and it throws it out the window. It just tosses it completely. Gone. Bye. And that's that even though Rue is a drug addict with a very specific issue of battling herself, it was still relatable. It was still an amazing vessel to be able to self-insert yourself into the show. With an ensemble cast like this, to have a lead be so well written just means the little aspect about everyone else just shines more. The small bits I see myself in characters like Lexi or Jules in some ways makes it so everyone can see themselves better overall. And this is coming from someone who isn't going through the exact pains and struggles of most of the leads. This is when you know it's so well written. It's a conversation I've had many times when discussing the show. I say, oh, it's relatable and it's gripping to see issues I have gone through or akin to on screen. And the usual response is, oh, so you're a girl in high school, but you aren't transitioning, or you aren't this or that or this, which I feel is just a massive oversimplification of the entire show and the stories and just how stories work in general. Because yes, those exact examples aren't my experiences I have personally gone through, but I am thankful that these arcs and stories are being told on one of the biggest platforms imaginable with HBO Max, so that people who have gone through these traumatic experiences have something to look to and feel heard and can feel like can relate to something in their own way. What I am talking about is the rest of the show and things that everyone can feel. To me, that shouldn't be a hard concept to grasp, but sometimes it's lost on people. And for Sam, I'm fucking sorry, bud, but Walter White isn't real and isn't going to be watching your teenage high school drama and isn't going to go, damn Jesse, this shit is so relatable. Even if I'm not a drug addict, Rue has always did these small, toxic and unhealthy things that in my darkest moments in my own life will admit to doing. That horrible, sad mental state, that cycle she goes on, it's enthralling in season 1. It's encapsulating, it had depth. I was obsessed with the way Sam was writing her. I have my own issues in my 21 years on this planet. I could easily just be able to empathize with the drug addict and see the worst aspects and see how this show wants to make a comment on said actions. And I imagine that the millions of people who saw season 1 can agree with me, along with everyone watching this video, that from the title you knew where I was going. But how the hell am I going to relate to Rue now that she's fighting from an episode getting to a friend to loan her $50,000 worth of drugs, and then gets angry when they say no? She then circumvents them to go to a mean lady from the start of the season, and then tries to get 10k from her, and that just puts a huge, massive weight on her shoulders, which is just so outlandish. Only good from it is that we got episode 5 from the season, which is by far one of the show's better episodes, period. But we aren't taking the foot off the gas just yet. We still got a fair bit to go. The only counterpoint I can see people in the comments making below is, what if this is based on something that happened to Sam or was something that he experienced or went through? Well, here is one of the most fundamental tips in writing from someone who hasn't written anything professionally. Because something is quote unquote real or happened doesn't mean it's entertaining. If you are doing a biopic, you don't include every single step the main character took in their life. So yes, this might have actually happened, but it's shit like these scenes in episode 1, or hell, the finale when everything in the stalemate with Fesco and Custer, that just doesn't clash well with the high school drama of sisters fighting it out or coping with anxiety or whatever angst are going on at the time. And definitely not when you're a show like this that is fighting for every single second of screen time amongst its lead characters. Okay, which I think leads to talking about the elephant in the room. Every single issue this season, if you break it down, can be summed up with the addition of Elliot this season. Everything in this video has been said about Cad or McKay or anyone. All of it can be said about him and the way he affects Jules and Rue. Elliot strips all agency away from Rue and Jules. Elliot is a gateway to get the story to where it needs to go more than anything. He isn't there for any real purpose other than to do what specifically Sam wants the story to be played out, or to be able to find an easy way to cause tension. Elliot isn't a character. Elliot is just Sam Levinson. Now, the actor playing him, he did nothing wrong. He did what he was told to do, and so that means just no hate towards Dominic at all. I hear he's a great bloke, so tops off to him. Yeah, nothing towards him. Now, here is where the behind the scenes drama that was all over my TikTok comes back into the conversation. The rumors around Hunter hating this edition and that Sam was doing things that the actors weren't wanting, but here's the real scoop. Initially, Hunter questioned the addition of a new male character potentially causing drama between Rue and Jules. That is true. She says, at first, I was like, wait, why are we throwing like a dude in the middle of this? She goes to further add that soon she accepted the idea of Elliot being involved in the Rules storyline. Here is where I disagree with Hunter. She says, but it wouldn't make for a good show if we were doing what was best for our characters. What this quote does say is that Hunter's focus comes from a place of the actor's point of view rather than the overall story's point of view. I don't think that's too harsh to say that. Where I disagree in that quote is that it's not as simple as it's made out to be, or as she makes it out to be. That its only contentious thing about it was this necessary evil Rue needs to have overcome during her arc, that the concept was one Hunter was eventually able to come around to. The drama is that Sam was allegedly doing these things in the better interest of the actors on set, which was the rumor in itself. None of that really just makes sense. But what I can say is Hunter was right in her hesitation of why there is suddenly not just a man, but any character in the middle like there was. To sum it up, I disagree with the thought process around this, that Hunter initially didn't like the idea of things getting worse before they got better via Elliot's inclusion, but got on board when she got over the hurdle of this is how the season will play out. I agree with Sam that the things need to get worse. I disagree that Elliot was the call to make here. Elliot wasn't the necessary evil. It needed to be more from Rue's side, that she has someone be the gateway. Pinning it all on Elliot is just a shitty way to write a story. It's just so easy, it's so lazy, it's poor writing. I want to focus on the best episode and show one of the areas where this can be seen clearest. Here, Rue walks up to Elliot for snitching about all the drugs they were doing and that she was never clean since the new year, hits Elliot in the face, calls him a snake, and now he's absent from the season till the finale, where it's just things are left in a weird place. The rest of the scene is with Jules, rightfully so. But all the agency of snitching is now shared onto a character that we have no connection to, and not solely on Jules, making the impact of this so-called betrayal less impactful, because she didn't instigate the information on Rue doing the drugs. She didn't have any involvement. She was ignorant on it. She was absent. She was just not there. If she was the one to find out that Rue was doing drugs through her own means, like working with pre-established characters throughout the season, and they find out through some other means, and then by herself went to Rue's mum, that would have been so impactful. Rather than blaming this new guy who was introduced, just in short, just to break up Jules from Rue. Like, she assaults Elliot. That's what she did. She assaulted Elliot and says these mean things, and then it cuts to him out of the scene. Like, what's this? Is this your payoff? Was this what you're building towards? Jesus, it's all just so disappointing when you look through this type of lens. And to be honest, I think Zendaya's wording on the matter showcases a lot of what I mean with the issues that were here. At first, she wasn't feeling it too, saying, I remember when Sam first kind of talked about this idea of this Elliot character. I wasn't feeling it. As someone who ships rules to the better end, I was like, whoa, what are you doing here? But in retrospect, and as someone who understands where the show needs to go and what needs to happen for these characters, it's crucial for Elliot to exist, and that he be the person that is honestly the catalyst for a lot of things that have to happen. Like, Jesus Christ. Zendaya said my issues better than I could in 25 minutes. He isn't a character. He's a glowing red flag with an orange hue beaming around him as a doomsday clock. He isn't there to have an arc like everyone else in the show. He isn't there like Ali. He isn't there like Lexi, which are to further and add their own arcs, but also happen to have their own course that involves other characters, and they grow and evolve and devolve together and making turn for some good fucking television. Elliot is only there to split up Rue and Jules, and that's it. And to be a bad influence on Rue so she can keep doing drugs. Which, if you're coming from Sam's perspective, I understand this trope being used. It's very often that you have a story be around someone doing drugs, and they have someone who's a bad influence be their gateway into worse shit. More often, I get it, I just do. I know people like this, I've known this. But back to the point I've said a million times. Because something has or can happen in real life, doesn't mean it should be written into a screenplay and then shot and then edited into one of the biggest shows just in period. Scenes that really frustrate me are the ones that are back-to-back ones of first off Rue kissing Elliot out of nowhere and then having a weird rivalry with this, and to follow up then stealing alcohol. This is the perfect example about, yes, teenagers do this. I have known people in my teenage years to have done this, but Fesco literally sells drinks. Why not go buy them off him? Considering Rue runs and rides her bike everywhere, they're all in distance of any shop, essentially, it doesn't seem like so much of an issue. Lexi literally goes there. And you only stole a single six-pack, and without Australia's highest tax rates on beer, I imagine they weren't all too expensive either. Like, seriously, it's a single fucking six-pack. So why the fuck is the entire sequence here? Is it for the drama of they gonna get caught? That Elliot is somehow deranged and he's nearly willing to get Jules arrested or killed for a six-pack? What are they trying to say here? I just hate that Jules is jealous of Rue and Elliot's friendship at the beginning and feared Rue would sleep with Elliot, and then she just does it herself. And then doesn't share this with Rue, and that is never brought up. Will it be? That would be worse than the betrayal in Rue's eyes, wouldn't it? She's already shown that she has trust issues with Jules cheating on her from what I've seen in the special. It's sad. Because we have moments like Rue expressing how much Jules is getting on her nerves. It's raw and it's well done, but the dressing around all of it doesn't work. It hurts to see. All of the ingredients for a ripping scene are right there, but you fucking overcooked it by 3 hours. They decide to have really impactful, harsh development in their relationship where they hand Rue, the recovering addict, drinks to hold. Why? They just expect her not to open them and drink them, or they just expect her to play good? They went and started doing this that Rue had to sit there and watch? Elliot obviously doesn't care, that's fine. But Jules, think for a second. They were going to just continue Truth or Dare. Elliot segued to get needing drinks, and it seems like a dick thing to do to spend hours doing something for a third of the group that can't partake in. Out of everything, that is my most nitpicky of my complaints. Then there are these smaller and more understandable issues begin to chip away at you and just break you into the point where you're just like, what the fuck are you doing? I just hate that one of my favorite parts of season 1 took this hard of a turn down a direction I just don't enjoy watching, when all the right puzzle pieces are sitting right there. Now I've just spent, 20-30 minutes going on hard about Euphoria Season 2, but I didn't have my enjoyment in the show. I've got it written in the script that I would probably make more videos on the show, but I've changed my tune. I don't think I want to talk about this anymore. Like episodes 5 to 7, I wrote like 3,000 extra words of notes about how I loved them and how outstanding they were and really returning the form. But for me, its finale was severely lackluster. It just summed up with something as simple as Elliot's song. And so I'm not really sure what to do now. But I think this is where I want to end the video.